The following program is brought to you in living color on NBC.
Well, greetings and salutations, my pipe friends. How are you doing today? Oh, holy smoking. Pipe, Padre. Greeting you on a Saturday, a beautiful September Saturday. So today is September 10th. And still enjoying my brand new Philippe Rivera cherry wood. I mean, you've seen this now, I think, a couple of videos, and absolutely gorgeous pipe. Smoking in some of that Samuel got with Navy Flake. And actually, I started this a couple nights ago, and I'm just going to try to use it through this video. One of the things about this pipe is it has a really good heat dispensation. Now, I would be less than honest saying that it doesn't get warm and hot, but unlike a poorly crafted pipe, it doesn't become excessively hot. So it has good, even heat distribution, so I'd just say that. That was one of the things that I don't think I mentioned the other day when I was introducing this pipe. Well, in the background you see a very famous visage. Oh, here comes my little kitty cat, little Elsie. Little Elsie the cat. I think this cat is starting to become like kind of a media addict. I think she knows that when I'm recording, it's like, hey, get me on there. I want to talk to my fans. You want to see your fans? Oh, you're so cute. Okay, let your fans see you real quick. Here. Okay, here she is for all your fans. There's your fans. Say hello to your fans out there, Elsie. Elsie, say hello to your fans. Okay, there you go. Yeah, you're such a cute cat. Yeah. Okay. There you go. Say bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, fans. I love you. Okay. The Pines of Rome by Respighi. That's what you heard in the background. Okay. Again, you see Leonard Nimoy as the inimitable Mr. Spock. And the reason why I'm kind of starting off this video with Mr. Spock is because, why am I doing that? Why am I doing this? Well, there's something about September that in some ways there's, I guess the correlation is, you know, things, there, I guess great things in some ways, kind of sad things, dramatic things, I guess. You know, we also, tomorrow will be September 11th. Again, a great day of tragedy. A day that, you know, as they said about World War II, you know, Pearl Harbor, a day which will live in infamy. But we're kind of seeing our country re-question things like patriotism and what it means to be an American and what makes America great, or is America great, or can it be great again? You know, all these questions. And I just watched a documentary last night about For the Love of Spock, which is interesting. It was made lovingly by his son, Adam, who looks an awful lot like Leonard Nimoy. I guess Leonard Nimoy was about 6'1" or 6'2". He was kind of a tall guy. They say that if you're really going to be a good actor, you got to have height. You got to have some tallness to you. And I guess that's true with Leonard Nimoy. Good stage presence. And so there's some other things I want to talk about. Again, I have a lot of things I wanted to talk about, but I don't really know how to, like, you know, squash them in, because they're kind of all different thoughts, and yet they're kind of, they have a lot in common, I think. For example, last video I talked to you about how in the 1950s we just had this sense of excellence. Let me roll that that video that I found it again, and I just wanted to, if I'm making this with the green screen, obviously, and so a lot of the images that I'm referring to, hopefully I'm going to be able to drop in, but I think I'll be able to do this one here. But again, watch this video with me, and again, we're not going to watch the whole thing, but, and again, I know for some of you, you're probably saying, why are you getting so excited about a commercial for kitchen appliances?
On which everything, top to bottom,
I just think that the way
inside
they
and out,
describe
is
these
new,
kitchen appliances,
except the
they
matchless
take
name.
them out of the realm of the
Imperial.
mundane and the
New
day-to-day,
fashioned products
and
which
they
are bound to make
elevate them.
old-fashioned
Now, again,
everything
some
that has
people might
gone
say, well,
before.
that's just, all that is was
Styling,
marketing and
exciting to
advertising,
behold. A
and
spine-tingling
absolutely, I
new
agree with you.
concept
But
called
the
sheer
sense,
look.
the feeling
As
you
bold
get
as
is
the
that
designers
you
who
are
created.
going to be buying something
Here
of
are
quality.
sheer masterful new strokes
You know,
that
you
merge
watch the video,
ultimate
and
in
you listen
function
to
and
the narrator.
straight
He
up and
has
down
this
style,
sonorous voice,
completely tailored
this
for
voice
that
that seems to
desirable, custom-built look.
instill,
Each
you know,
possessing
integrity
separate,
and virtue and
freestanding
high ideals, you know, into these,
See how
again,
each
yes,
blends
common
in
everyday
so perfectly
appliances.
with unremodeled,
But in many ways, people,
modernized,
you know, one person
or
did
brand
make a
new
comment which I thought was very valid. They said, well, it was right after World War II, and there had been so much death and so much negativity and so much ugliness that the world was hungering for, if you were, beauty and beautiful ideas. And I agree with that. I agree with that. In fact, in many ways, that's, I want to say, in some ways, that's why Star Trek and Mr. Spock, and, you know, when it premiered in September, you know, back 50 years ago, there was a sense of, yeah, it was kind of elevating, if you will, the national conversation to something better. Again, we were embroiled in race riots in Vietnam, and again, a lot of negativity and ugly images. And so all of a sudden you see this beautiful opening of Star Trek, and all of a sudden it's like a whole new, not just world has opened up, but the whole universe now is ours to explore and discover and inhabit, you know. So again, I think maybe that's why, you know, that commercial, this commercial, I'm now playing it again, I guess. This is going to be an interesting editing thing. A lot of these videos sometimes are created more in post than they are when I actually make them. So it's kind of a fun thing to take the live that I'm doing now and kind of marry it up with what I'm really thinking in my head. So that's why I love Final Cut Pro X. Okay. Love Apple products. They enable me to create my vision, whatever that is.
You have the ultimate to demonstrate and sell. The ultimate in range.
So anyway,
no other range can even approach its superb quality and performance.
I think that
And now for the
thing that I was left with, and one of the things that as I was watching this video about For the Love of Spock,
here family resemblances
was it was kind of a different video. Just watching my little kitty over there. It gave a good historical background to Leonard Nimoy. And maybe the point of the video was, which was interesting, one of the things that I also remembered as a young man, or a young person, that Leonard Nimoy actually played Sherlock Holmes. He played Spock, and he played Sherlock. I think that's wonderful. Here are some pictures of him playing the inimitable, the world's first consulting detective himself, and playing him from a traditional perspective, which I appreciate. Not to say that the new Sherlock episode, I think, is number 3 or number 4, coming out soon with Benedict Cumberbatch and Martin Freeman, aka Bilbo Baggins of the Shire. Again, another thing. I mean, I'm kind of doing a randomness of consciousness here. You know, again, the whole Tolkien thing was about a whole new world, a possible world that was a positive world. Even though in the midst of darkness and even death and war, there could be a new world reborn that was going to be good and better than what it had been in the past. Anyway, yeah, Leonard Nimoy actually played Holmes on Broadway, I guess, or at least in theater, and I thought that was fascinating. But the thing was with Leonard Nimoy was there was kind of like this ambiguity. In some ways, there was even kind of a bit of there was a rejection in some ways in post Star Trek. Leonard Nimoy kind of resented the fact that he got typecast and everybody just saw him as Mr. Spock. There was a book he even wrote, I Am Not Spock. So for a period of time, Leonard Nimoy was not very happy with the fact that he was earmarked as this unemotional Vulcan. Because if you look at some of his earlier acting, one of the TV shows that I remember Leonard Nimoy in, actually, and I was just a kid, I was like 8 years old, but I was really interested, and I actually thought it was, and again, I'm just a kid. He played in a TV show called The Lieutenant. It was about a Marine Corps lieutenant, and I was fascinated by that TV program. Now later, I became a great lover of Gomer Pyle USMC, so it's no surprise that, yes, old Padre Francesco actually was a United States Marine. You know, at the tender age of 17, I ran away, and instead of joining the circus, I joined Uncle Sam's Misguided Children. But again, there was a sense of Marine Corps life was described in TV shows and movies as a very positive thing, you know. So, but anyway, but again, Leonard Nimoy portrayed this Marine lieutenant, and it was a dramatic series. And I remember watching it with my brother, and I was riveted by his performance in that TV show. In fact, I'm going to treat myself if I can and see if I can find that on YouTube. I bet you I can, and if I can, hoorah! You know, Semper Fi, do or die. But anyway, but again, Leonard Nimoy was a great actor. He wasn't just Mr. Spock. And the reason why he was so convincing as Mr. Spock was because he was an excellent actor. Now, again, what happened was he kind of got disillusioned in some ways, and he decided he wanted to branch out. And he went back to live theater. And God bless him, a lot of really great actors. I mean, that's where they learned their craft, and that's where they sometimes find their real home. So I understand, and I support that, and I think that was a great decision on his part. And again, he wrote a book called I'm Not Spock. You know, it's like, hey, look, folks, I was just playing a character. But then later in life, I think what he began to realize is that it was inescapable, is it wasn't just a character, but he actually helped to create a great icon of the 20th century, and indeed the 21st century. Whether he liked it or not, he had to make peace with that, and he did. And again, at the very end, when his son Adam said, "Hey, I'd like to make this documentary as we celebrate the 50th anniversary of Star Trek, let's also focus on Spock, the character, because Spock, you wouldn't have Star Trek without Spock, I don't think." Some people might want to argue that point, but I think that, let's just say for the original series, I just don't think that it would. I mean, it met with a lot of opposition in the beginning anyway. And maybe some people might say, well, it was because it was Spock was too cerebral and it was too intellectual that it almost didn't make it. Well, anyway, the reality is that it had 2 pilots, Star Trek did, and the second time it came about, they did a little bit of adaptations, a little bit of modifying, but again, Star Trek and the Enterprise, and it all worked. Now again, it had 3 seasons, and then it was canceled. Okay. Who knows what would have happened if there was a 4th and a 5th season? Who knows? But again, from those early episodes, and I would encourage you to go back, and I don't know if you can find them on YouTube for free. I think it's still paid media. So they're like 99 cents a pop. Maybe you can download them on Netflix for cheaper. I don't know. But again, what made Star Trek and Spock and all the other characters, I think they had didn't they have a captain in that show too? Some guy named, I can't remember his name. He was kind of an insignificant character. But anyway, but the thing is that the writing was wonderful. The thing was that Star Trek premiered in the 60s, and we still were blessed, I have to say, with some really great writers. I mean, the people that were writing things like The Twilight Zone and Outer Limits and Gunsmoke and, Have Gun Will Travel. Those kinds of writers that wrote those kinds of stories. Oh, just great stories. Stories that, they kind of haunt you even today. One of my friends loved a Twilight story called Walking Distance, and he turned me on to that. And that was just such a hauntingly beautiful little story, And again, those kinds of stories, because they spoke to us inside where we live, and it kind of helped us to bring some of our insights out and see that some of those things are good, and we can have dreams, and we can have visions, and we can believe in a better future, although sometimes seems a little bit difficult these days to do that. But anyway, so yeah, so again, as we look kind of where we live today in our neighborhood, neighbors, not to be confused with Jim Neighbors, who played Gomer Pyle, USMC. Shazam, Shazam, she's a golly gee, Sergeant Carter. Surprise, surprise, surprise. Okay. Just had to get that out. Just had to do that. But we look at 9/11, and it is absolutely one of the most. I mean, I saw it, as many of you did, saw it live. And that was one of the worst days in my life. I can honestly say that. I mean, I had just, it was a day off for me. It was a Tuesday, and I was helping out a little parish in Los Osos, the Valley of the Bears. Nice place to live, and a little St. Elizabeth Ann Seton Catholic church there, and went over there to say Mass early morning, and just as I was getting ready to process in, 2 people ran in to the sacristy where I was vesting, and they said, "Father, the Pentagon has just been attacked." I said, "What?" "Yeah, they've been, and I was like, what? So anyway, I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do. He said, "Well, we'll pray for them, of course." And then I got home and turned on my TV and saw the horrific images that were just absolutely unbelievable. I mean, I couldn't believe I was seeing the images that I saw since 9/11, of course, even though they did kind of show the towers going down you know, eternally, every 5, 6, 10 minutes, it seemed like the towers were falling again. There they go, they're falling again. We got so overloaded on that. Had to walk away. But, yeah, it just really was kind of a very ugly experience. Horrible. I mean, there really are no words to describe what we went through, and I think in some ways we're still processing that, because it's an ongoing reality. Whether you want to talk about terrorism, or you want to talk about ISIS, or you want to talk about whatever the threat is, it still is a real threat. I mean, look at all of the incidents that are happening. And again, I'm not here to try to gin up any emotions of Islamophobia or anything like that. It's just the reality is that 9/11 is a reality. It happened. It was ugly. It's still a black mark in our history books, and it probably always will be. But I think in the last 15 years, as we commemorate the 15th commemoration on this Sunday, tomorrow, it brings back a lot of ugly feelings. I guess that's the best way we can say, just a lot of ugly feelings. But I want to say, and this is my experience, so you may take it or toss it. But one of the things that I felt in the wake of all of the sadness, that followed 9/11, there were rays of hope. At the time, I had just gotten out of the Army as an Army chaplain. I started my military career as a young Marine, and then later transferred to the Army as an Army officer, and then later a chaplain in the Army. That's where I spent 3 years in Germany. And I had just gotten back, and I was a prison chaplain. So, but I still had a lot of contacts with a lot of dear military friends, and one of them had just been assigned to West Point to teach business administration. And he told me that that night, there's something that really made an impression upon me. He said that night that the cadets of the United States Military Academy at West Point all stood vigil. I think they did a 24-hour vigil, at least, or maybe it was an 18-hour vigil. But they got in full dress parade uniform. They went out to the parade field, and they stood watch. Yeah, it was symbolic mostly, but again, it was a way of showing their love and support for the nation. So they stood a vigil. The cadet corps stood a vigil. And I don't know if they did it for a whole week or several days, but I know that the day of 9/11, that night, all those cadets were in full dress uniform, and they were standing vigil all night long. Made a very profound impact upon my soul. So, but one of the things that I felt, and again, this is my experience, and you might want to say, no, that's not what I experienced, but I think a lot of people did. I thought I saw a real coming together of our country. And people were a little kinder to each other. They were a little more polite to each other. They were a little more respectful to each other. And I felt that was a positive thing. I thought that was a great thing. That we were now Americans, and this sadness, this this horror, this ugliness now began to unify us in a way we hadn't been unified before. And I really thought that was a positive thing. I thought that was a good thing. So when I think about September and I think about 9/11, I think about, yes, that black day. But also when I think of September, I think of new beginnings, you know. Here in Chico, which is a university town, the last couple of weeks, school has started again. And all these young people are living their lives and, you know, trying to live their dreams and fulfill their dreams and accomplish their goals. Reminds me when I was back then in those days, going to school all the time. September's kind of like that new beginning, and it's always wonderful. So I guess in some ways there is that sense that even in the midst of darkness, in the midst of horror, in the midst of ugliness, there can be, in many ways, a rebirth of something good and positive. I think that one of the things that Star Trek kind of helped us to do, again, it wasn't the obviously it didn't create the space race, but it certainly propelled it. It gave it some extra rocket fuel, I think. And because of Star Trek, you know, we kind of felt like we are going to go to the moon, because a year later, July 20th, 1969, we landed on the moon. Despite what those flat Earth people say. But anyway, so that's maybe why I'm, you know, talking about Spock, talking about Leonard Nimoy, talking about Sherlock Holmes, talking about September 11th, talking about, you know, positive imagery from the 1950s, talking about my love for kitty cats. By the way, Spock, or at least Leonard Nimoy, I think he liked kitty cats.
Fascinating.
And there's a couple of pictures of Spock that are showing him with this black kitty cat, and I just thought that was kind of interesting.
But it is interesting.
So people that love kitty cats, you know, again, we all know that the real reason for the internet, at least we know this. Most people may not be aware, but the only reason why the internet exists is for YouTube pipe videos and for cat videos. That's the real purpose of YouTube.
Fascinating. Fascinating.
If you want to talk about other things, that's fine, but this is what people really come for.
Fascinating.
So anyway, this has been kind of my little memorial retrospective of, you know, September 11th and September in general and new beginnings, and even in the midst of sometimes sadness. But so anyway, I don't know if that made sense to anybody today. Thank you for watching. If you were able to follow me through this video, I don't think it was as long as my last one. But again, I hope you're having a great a day as you take time and you pause and to remember. But also in the midst of the tragedy and the brokenness and the loss of life, you know, we kind of have to dig through and find what it is that we really believe in, and then we are able to unite ourselves as Americans and people of hope, people who believe in a positive future, and we move on. Thanks for watching. Light up your world. Today, light up your pipe. Thanks for watching. See you next time.